Welcome to today's video on the greatest common factor, or we could abbreviate that and say GCF. Now, you'll find this to be really similar to LCM, least common multiple, but it's kind of reversed. So first, let's take a quick look in part one on what is the difference between a factor versus a multiple. So in our last lesson, we learned about multiples. Multiples of 12, let's go ahead and list those. We would start with 12 times 1 would be 12, 12 times 2, 24, 12 times 3, 36, 12 times 4, 48, and so on. So remember, that's what a multiple is. It's when I multiply the number by 1, 2, 3, 4, and I make a list. You could also just think of it as counting by 12s. All right, now multiples, we could look at these, you could kind of see what's happening here by using the area of rectangles. So this first rectangle is 12 wide, but it's only 1 long. So what would the area of that rectangle be? Let's remember that for a rectangle, that area equals base times height. So we're going to take 12 times 1, and the area of this rectangle is going to be 12. In the second rectangle, instead of doing 12 by 1 or 12 times 1, like we did here, we're going to do 12 by 2. So 12 wide and 2 long is going to give us 24 as the area. Now notice our areas are our multiples of 12. So 12 times 1, area is 12. 12 times 2, area is 24. Now we have 12 by 3, so we do 12 times 3, which is 36. So as you're listing multiples, you're also listing areas of rectangles that are 12 by 1 or 2 or 3, and so on. All right, let's see how that differs from factors. Factors of 12 is when we list all the numbers that 12 can be evenly divided by. So I can divide 12 by 12 and get 1. So 1 times 12 equals 12. So those are both factors of 12. 2 also goes into 12. 2 times 6 equals 12. So those are both factors as well. 3 goes into 12. 3 times 4 equals 12. So those are a complete list of factors of 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12. So again, multiples of 12, we multiply 12 by 1, 2, 3, 4. Factors is what can we divide 12 by evenly. So multiples is all about multiplying. Factors is all about dividing. So they're really kind of the opposite of each other. So another way to think about factors is in these three rectangles, the area is always going to be 12 because that's what we're going to multiply and get. But there's different ways to multiply and get 12. I can get the area of 12 in a rectangle by doing 12 times 1, and then I get an area of 12. I could also get a rectangle with an area of 12 by doing 6 times 2. So we have those two factors here. I could also get an area of 12 with a rectangle that's 3 by 4 or 3 times 4. So that's another way to think about factors. All right, let's move on. Now part 2 is we are going to learn how to list all the factors of a number without missing any, and then we're going to use that to find the greatest common factor. Now, the best strategy that we found is to use these T-charts. Now, I know that some of you probably did something like this in the past in everyday math, where you do kind of the rainbow. It works okay, but the problem is it's easy to miss some, and sometimes you get too squishy in the middle. So a T-chart solves both of those problems. So this is how I want you to use GCF for our purposes. You're going to make a quick T-chart for any numbers that you're trying to list all the factors of and find GCF. Oftentimes, we're only asked to find the GCF of 2 numbers. I thought I would make it a little trickier to start off with, and we're going to do 3. It's really not any harder. It's just one more T-chart. So we're going to draw our T-charts. Then you're going to write the number on top of the T-chart of whatever number you're trying to find all the factors of. All right, so let's start with 18. We're going to start with 1. We know that 1 goes into everything. So on this side of our T, we're going to put 1. On the other side is what do we multiply by 1 to get 18? So 1 and 18 make 18 when we multiply them. Now let's just go in order. We're going to try every number. So let's try 2. We know that 2 goes into 18 because it's an even number. So 2 times 9 is 18. Let's try 3. Yep, I do know that 3 goes into 18. 3 times 6 is 18. Let's try 4. 18 is not divisible by 4 evenly, so we are not going to put 4 down. 18 is not divisible by 5, and it is divisible by 6, but we already have that here. So as soon as you start listing factors that are on this side over here, you know that you're done. So we could list all the factors of 18, and let's just write those in a list. And it's really easy to write them in order now. We just loop around. So if you were asked to list all the factors of 18, you would make your T-chart, then make a list. 1, 2, 3, 6, 9, and 18. Let's do the same for 36. We'll go a little faster this time. 1 times 36 is 36. 2, yes, it's even. So 2 times 18. Is it divisible by 3? Yes. 3 times 12. Divisible by 4? Yes. 4 times 9. It is not divisible by 5. It is divisible by 6, 6, and 6. And if you get them matching up, then you also know you're done. So we have some over here and some over here. Let's list them in order. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. We do not have to say 6 twice. 9, 12, 18, and 36. So that is a complete list of the factors of 36. Now for 60. Why don't you go ahead and pause the video, see if you can list all the factors of 60, and then unpause to see if you got them all. Good luck. All right, go ahead and look at my list. Did you get every single one? And again, that's the trick, is to make sure you're not missing any, because if you are, your answer is going to be wrong. So fix it if you didn't. All right, so now it is time to find the GCF of these numbers. So I'm going to erase my lists here, just so that I have a little bit more room. All right, now this is really important because we want not just a common factor, but we want the greatest common factor. So we recognize common from least common multiple. So we want a factor that is on all 3 charts, or if it was just 2 numbers, on both charts. But we don't want the smallest factor that they have in common. Now we want the greatest. So this is super, super important. When you look through for a common factor, don't start at the smallest and get bigger. Because if you do, you might find a common factor, but you might find the smallest instead of the largest, and that's going to cause you problems. So what we're going to do, since we want greatest common factor, is we're going to start with the biggest factors and look this way. All right, you can start with any of these T-charts, but here's what you're going to do. I'll start with this one. It really doesn't matter which one though. I'm going to start with the greatest factor, and I'm just going to ask myself, is 36 a factor of 18? No. Is it a factor of 60? No. So I'm going to cross that out. 18. Can I find it as a factor over here? Yep. And not over here, so no. How about 12? 12 is not a factor of 18. It is a factor of 60, but since it's not a factor of both, we have to cross that out. Let's try 9. Okay, 9 is a factor of 18, but it's not a factor of 60, so cross that out. How about 6? 6 is a factor of 18, and it is a factor of 60 and 36. So that is the greatest factor that all 3 have in common. So make sure you start with the biggest and go backwards so you don't accidentally pick one that's not the greatest. For example, what if we had accidentally picked 2? It's on all 3 lists, but it's not the greatest factor. What if we had accidentally picked 3? Again, it's on all 3 lists. It is a common factor, but it's not the biggest one. So we would write the GCF is 6. All right, part 3. Now what we're going to do is use greatest common factor to simplify fractions, just like we used least common multiple to find our common denominators. This also has a really important purpose. So here we go. Again, we're going to look at 18 and 36. Now we already know from up here